Catholic Moments, Episode 76. Sister Helena Burns.
Blooming, finding joy in the journey and hope in the heaven yet to come. Blooming.
Hello and welcome to Catholic Moments. And now, here's your host and my mom, Lisa Hendy.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Catholic Moments, the show from CatholicMom.com, where we talk about all things faith, family, and fun from a Catholic perspective. And I wanted to say a thank you to Eric, and also a thank you to Therese Smith, who's the fabulous Catholic recording artist behind the voice of Blooming, our theme song. And you can always check out Therese's music at www.theresasmithmusic.com. Well, happy Wednesday, everyone. I want to give a special thanks and shout out to all of those who have showered me with love and prayers for the last few days since I shared with you my little medical situation that I have going on. I can't tell you how appreciative I am for all the support that has been given to me by our wonderful SQPN community and our CatholicMom.com and Catholic Moments community. I hesitated to talk about the medical thing that I've been going through because it's really not a big deal. And the prognosis, although still a little bit undetermined, is very positive, so that's a good thing. I have a meeting tomorrow with a surgeon, so you can just continue your prayers through that. That would be great. And I'm hoping to report that everything is good and that we'll just be going ahead with some further monitoring. So thank you, though, for all of the support and encouragement that I've received. It really means so much to me, and I hope that this is a reminder to the moms out there, my friend moms who are listening, that we really do need to take care of ourselves, and part of that taking care of ourselves is to get our regular medical checkups, and so I hope you'll take care of doing that. My mom reported to me today that she went off for her mammogram today, and I'm nagging both of my sisters too, so moms out there, get yourself to the doctors. So that's enough about that. I want to share with you the great interview that I have today. This is going to be a little bit different episode because my interview today is a little longer than the normal ones that we do. This interview is with Sister Helena Burns, and Sister Helena is one of the daughters of St. Paul, and I was lucky enough to spend time with her in Chicago when I was there on my recent trip, and was so happy to be able to take about half an hour to interview Sister Helena about her work in new media. And I thought I'd share with you, before I play the interview, her bio from her blog, which she's got the funniest blog name for a nun. You can find Sister Helena Burns at www.hellburns.blogspot.com. And here on her blog, she has this great introduction. She says, "I was going to be an ornithologist, but God zapped me, and I now belong to the Daughters of St. Paul, an international congregation of religious women dedicated to spreading God's word through the media at www.pauline.org. I give workshops to teens and adults on media, philosophy, and theology of the body. I'm the movie reviewer for the Catholic New World, Chicago's Catholic newspaper. I have a BA in philosophy and theology from St. John's University in New York City, a certificate in pastoral youth ministry from the Center for Youth Ministry Development in Connecticut, and a certificate in media literacy from the Jesuit Media Project in Toronto. I studied screenwriting at UCLA and Act One in Hollywood." So I'm so happy to share this interview with Sister Helena. Basically, this is going to be the show for today because, like I said, it's a little bit longer than our normal interviews, but I know you're going to find her so fascinating, just as I did, and I hope you'll take some time after the interview plays to go over and to visit her blog and to find out all the great things that the Daughters of St. Paul are up to. And I want to thank Sister Helena and the nun blogger, her Sister Anne, for the time that they spent with me while I was in Chicago. It was such a great visit. So here is my new friend, Sister Helena Burns. This morning I am with Sister Helena Burns at the Pauline Book Center in Chicago. Hi, Sister. How are you today?
Good. And yourself?
Thank you so much for making time to be with me. What I wanted to do, I'm a big fan of the Book Center, and whenever I visit Chicago, I always come in here and visit, but I thought it would be really fun to see it from your perspective and have you tell our audience a little bit more about what they can find when they visit the Book Center.
Well, it's a very small store. Well, not that small. On Michigan Avenue, it's at the north end of Millennium Park between Lake and Randolph. And we have a Blessed Sacrament Chapel, as we do in all of our book centers. We have just a really great selection. As a lot of your listeners probably know, we review all of our books.
Okay.
So not only to make sure they're orthodox, but also so that there might be 10 books on one subject, and we want to get you the best. So we might choose 3 of those. And also for space, too.
And you're not just selling the books from your own publishing company in here, right? You sell any kind of Catholic book that's
Catholic
targeted.
And some Christian also.
Okay.
Some,
Great.
But again, the criterion is always that they're orthodox, that they're pastoral, they're really going to help people. We have things for scholars as well. We have scripture studies, theology, philosophy, saints, biographies, prayer books. We have our growing Spanish section is really interesting because more and more Spanish-speaking people are coming into the center and telling their friends. We have a large selection of DVDs, music. I'm trying to think what else we've got. We have some religious articles as well, although that is not our mission.
Okay, so not as much of a gift store as really
it's
an
really
educational.
Media. Our mission is to evangelize with media. It's the only thing we were founded to do. And we have our sisters that who you know out in Fresno, the Sister Disciples of the Divine Master, also founded by our founder.
Okay.
And that's their mission, is to do liturgical vestments, sacred vessels, sacred art, and religious articles. Not that we're against religious articles by any means,
right.
But it's kind of like you have to focus. And a lot of times people will choose a religious article over a book. And we always try to turn it around so that people have something for their minds, something to chew on, information, inspiration, education about the faith, which is so needed today.
And it can go with them as they, rather than something that they might just hang on the wall one time. And
Right, which can be very inspiring and all, but that's not our mission. So we try to leave that to our cousins, the Sisters of the Divine Master, and we do the media end of things.
Great. Now, here in the Book Center, I know that you probably serve sort of an evangelical role as well, because you're out here in a prime real estate in Chicago. Do you have people that you find stopping by to kind of ask questions?
I would say maybe at least 30 to 40% of the people who stop in are not Catholic.
Okay.
And they come in for inspiration. They come in for something on the Bible. They come in to use our chapel. A lot of non-Catholics use our chapel. A lot of people becoming Catholic. It's just ongoing. So the crowd that we get here are mostly business people that work in the area, but we also have residences here. So a lot of the people in the high-rises stop in. People will make a trip in to see us. There's no parking, but we have great public transportation to get here. People will shop, of course, on North Michigan Avenue with their families and friends on the weekends. So on Saturday, we get a lot of that crowd. More families come in on Saturdays. We also hold events here at the center. So we have all kinds of study groups. We have a once-a-month Theology of the Body with Father Loya.
Is that the one that I see on the internet on Ustream?
We have on Ustream.tv. If you search for Theology of the Body, we do live streaming when he's here. It's the second Wednesday.
At this location.
Yeah, second Wednesday of every month at 6:30 Central Time. And then we archive it, so if you miss a class or whatever, you can go back. We're actually going through the text, John Paul II's whole text, the big chunky text.
I've watched it once or twice, and it is an amazing presentation.
Oh, yes, he's fabulous. He's a Byzantine priest outside of Chicago here, about 45 minutes away. And the wonderful thing is, and he heard the Theology of the Body addresses live in St. Peter's Square. He tells the story. He was a student, and he went over, and he said, I had my cappuccino. And I dropped my cappuccino when I heard the Holy Father speaking like an artist. Because he's an artist. He did all the icons at his church.
Oh, my gosh.
And he said the things I always knew about the human body, I had never heard anybody in the church ever say it. And here was John Paul II saying it. And so he has this wonderful approach, the Eastern Rite Catholic approach, as well as an artist's eye for the human body and all of that. So that's our study group. We have a First Friday movie night. We use the movie lectionary. which takes a gospel, the gospel of the Sunday, and pairs every gospel of the year up with a secular film.
Oh my goodness. Is that a book that's sold here in the center as well?
Yes,
Okay.
it's 3 cycles, A, B, and C. And then Sister Rose, one of our sisters who's very into media and media literacy, also did one on the 10 Commandments, 2 movies per commandment. Regular, big blockbuster secular movies. And she's working on a book on the Beatitudes, pairing movies up with the Beatitudes.
I need to take a look at those because I have teenagers, and that would be such a wonderful way
fabulous.
to enjoy family movie night, but have
Yes.
a tie-in to the Sunday liturgy of the Word. That's great.
Yes, and you really unpack it, and there's a whole, it's all broken down for you. There's a closing prayer. We read the gospel together. And then that Sunday when you go, it's like, wow, everything comes back to you. Your discussions, how you really unpack that gospel, and then the scenes from the movie. It's an incredible experience,
Wow,
really.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, and then we have a first Saturday women's book club. We choose all kinds of books, not just sacred books or holy books. We have all kinds of bestsellers, but always from our faith experience. So we're all Catholic women, and just kind of trying to relate to this person's experience. How do I, as a Catholic woman, relate to this experience?
Are some of these resources available, like through your website, that people could see what you're reading and maybe read along with you, even though they can't
That's
be
a
here,
great
or-
idea. We haven't done that yet, but that's wonderful. I mean, you'll see if you go onto our Pauline.org and choose locations, and you choose Chicago, you'll see all of these events that are going
you'll find
on.
them listed.
But we don't get into specifics of what we're doing. We also hold Bible studies here. We use the Jeff Cavins DVDs from Ascension
those are
Press,
great.
which are fabulous. And we just keep doing it over and over and over again. The 8-week, the shortened 8-week overview of the Bible. We start that in Lent, on Saturdays of Lent. Then we choose also starting in Lent, one of the longer Bible studies. So we've already done Acts, which was a 24-week program. We've done Matthew, which is also a 24-week program. And then we're going to be doing Revelation, Book of Revelation, which is a 10-week program. And it's just wonderful. I mean, Jeff is amazing, and he just makes it so accessible and not without oversimplifying it either. And there's the spiritual aspect, the historical aspect, they're fabulous. And I understand he's just done a church history one called Epic, which...
And I think they're all tied in with the catechism as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
or
he constantly references the what to read in the catechism of the Catholic Church. I always say the Catechism of the Catholic Church is a Bible study in reverse, because it's like what it means, and then it shows you where to go in the Bible. So,
I've never thought of it that way, but that's great.
Yeah, so we have a lot going on here. I'm trying to think what else we do. We have a women's Advent retreat. That's the first Saturday of Advent, first Saturday of December.
And is it actually held here, or is it
It's held
offsite?
here, and this year we're very excited because we get about 50 women come. We can't fit any more in our hall upstairs. This is a small place. We're going to go through Dante. So we have a sister who's kind of an expert in Dante, and she's going to do a prayerful leading through Dante. I hear she's focusing on purgatory.
Oh my goodness. I think I need to come back for that. That's great.
Yeah.
So do the women just come during the day, and then they don't obviously stay on site?
It's
a
9
day.
to 3.
what a
And
wonderful thing.
we have Eucharistic adoration as part of it. There's a lot of time to just discuss with one another, along with the presentations. And the women just keep saying, do it more. We want more, do something can we do this every month? So, but it's hard because we're only 5 sisters here. And
Really?
Yes.
And you're running this whole
Yes,
operation.
yes.
And if you can see this, I mean, this is a big city store.
Yes. And we're stretched pretty thin in all of our locations, but, we try to be like St. Paul, all to all, and do what we can. We do a lot of traveling as well. So, for example, Sister Irene and I are going to Wisconsin tomorrow, and then on to the Eucharistic Congress in North Dakota, which is an 18-hour car drive.
Oh, my gosh.
But we want to be where people are for many reasons, to evangelize with the media, to make contacts, because there's more to our mission than just sort of selling books or whatever. They can get involved with us in many other ways. Vocations, also to meet vocations. We give talks on media literacy, so we help people to put their faith life together with their media life. I mean, we're living in a media culture now.
Right.
And we need to learn how to navigate it. Our Mother General was here in June, and she went to Cardinal George. She always goes to visit the bishop of the area. And he was so gracious to see her, because a lot of times they'll send a priest or a bishop to visit with the Mother Generals or whatever. Don't have that kind of time.
But he actually
he
saw
actually met with her
himself.
person to person, and the first words out of his mouth were, And the reason she goes is to say, how can we serve better here? What are you looking for from us in this diocese? And the first thing he said was, help the parents, help the children discern media. Second, he said, help us to use the new media. And thirdly, we have these media prayer breakfasts for media professionals that we had done back in the 80s and 90s that we discontinued. He said, start those up again.
Oh, so that's...
Yes.
You've been given a threefold mission of
Yes,
marching
we
orders
have.
from
Yes,
the Cardinal.
we have.
He didn't just say, oh, everything is fine. Go ahead as you're doing.
Right.
Which might have been the answer she was looking for. But
Yes,
that's really exciting. And I know that with the new media, I mean, to find sisters on Ustream is, to be putting those faces out there and to be your unafraid use of the media, I think is very inspired by St. Paul, who would have been podcasting and doing streaming video and all that.
He'd have his own global network,
exactly.
And I think you mentioned the key word there too, fear.
Yes.
There's just so much fear. And the Holy Father, John Paul II, 2 months before he died, signed off on his last document called Rapid Development. It was on the media. So the media was very much on his mind right before he died in his final illness. And all throughout that document, it's a great document to read. It's very short. He just keeps saying, do not be afraid of the new media. Do not be afraid of the new technology. He was telling us through his whole pontificate, do not be afraid. And now he's saying it about the media. Put out into the deep. Get in there. Get your feet wet.
Right.
Our founder, Blessed James Alberione, was had a lot of vision. He started our community back in 1915. He started the Priests and Brothers 1914, and then the Sisters, Daughters of St. Paul the next year. And he had just a really positive attitude toward the media. He said, boycotts and protests, they might do some good, but he said, why don't you put all your energy into creating good Catholic media?
Right.
And emphasizing the positive and collaborating with those who want to do something, like people of goodwill who want to do something positive in media. So he's kind of our light, but I do encounter much, much fear out there, especially parents, and you can't blame them. I mean, it's like, okay, you have to parent in reality, and now you have to parent in virtual reality.
And I think we have a lot of people who have a tendency to just kind of close off everything and say, oh, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go on the internet. We're not going to turn on the television. But the reality is that our children have to go out and live in the world, and so they need to be formed in their own faith to make good choices.
Yes, I mean, they have homework assignments.
Right,
I mean, how do you cut yourself off unless you choose to head for the hills, which is an option. I mean, you can do that, but are you going to see billboards on the way?
Right.
Isn't it better? I think it's better. Our approach is to learn to navigate the media culture, and it's not easy. I mean, it really isn't, especially with like porn.
Exactly.
We are swimming not just in media culture, we're swimming in a porn culture. How do you prevent your child with all the best blockers online from seeing porn at
what's
age
the answer
10?
to that?
Well, I'm working on it. I think theology of the body is the answer, the number one answer, because if we start speaking to our young people about sex from a very early age, we don't even call it sex in theology of the body, it's the marital embrace,
Right.
And talk to them about porn and say, you're going to, in this world, you're going to see stuff that does not represent what we believe about the human body, and it's very dangerous and it's addictive. I think the message we have to get out there is that porn is addictive. It's like meth. It's a highly, highly addictive form of media, so that you can't just use a little porn. If you use it at all, you're addicted.
Right.
So, and I think we're just so silent and about this. And I say, the devil's laughing up his sleeve, because, the Howard Sterns of the world and Playboy, they're not shy about talking about sex and presenting their story of sex and their meaning of sex. And we're just so ashamed and trying to be modest or something.
Right. If we don't talk about it, then maybe that won't come to their mind or whatever.
Right.
And I have 2 teenage sons, so I deal with this on a daily basis.
Or we shouldn't talk about this at all, or we're embarrassed. And we've got to get over that. We've got to get over our own embarrassment to talk about the human body and to present it really well. And Father Loya, actually, he does retreats and things, and he has a wonderful DVD called, I think it's called The Interior Gaze, a remedy for porno vision and lust. And he actually teaches men how to look, because men are, very visual.
Right.
And not to look at porn, but how to look at a woman. I mean, women are all around, right?
Yes.
And even if you see a scantily clad picture of a woman, how to look so that not stare at it, but how to look so that you are respecting the dignity of this.
Right.
It's okay to look at a beautiful woman, you know, but not to look at her as a thing and an
Right.
object. He describes, he goes through a whole workshop of like, he'll take famous nude oil paintings and explain how, you know, how the eye goes through those and why those are not porn.
The difference in terms of the representation that's being made by the artist, and God ultimately the artist in creating us as women, you know, and remembering that's amazing. I'll have to and I'll look that up and make sure we link to that DVD in the show notes.
Oh,
as well.
sure. It's theologyofthebody.net.
Okay.
Is the and just resources, and then it sends you to a whole nother website. So there's just so much to be done today in the field of media, but I really do think we need to start talking about pornography because millions of men are addicted. I can tell you horror stories. There's a priest in Manhattan, and he said all the best men in my parish are now addicted to porn. The Knights of Columbus, the Holy Name Society. Nobody knows, but they hear the priest here in confession, and some of them just go, "Hey, Father, you know, I got a problem," and you know, the resources aren't out there. I mean, can you name one place where a man can go who's got a porn addiction? I mean, maybe you can because you're very plugged in.
Actually, Joe McLean, the Catholic Hack, talks about that quite a lot on his show. His own battle with
Joe McLean.
Yes.
Okay. I have to look him up.
CatholicHack.com is a good resource for that particular topic, but and other resources from there. But yeah, it's I think it's a very prevalent thing that people are dealing with, and just the incredible frequency of it in our and I see it with my sons that they're little friends who are girls. It's like girls are being objectified as well, and not really even realizing that, because it's so prevalent that you know, on MySpace or whatever, they're dressed a certain way and they don't realize what the image that they're putting out, because it's so common.
It's not just like men are saying, "Oh, this is how I look at a woman." A woman is looking at herself that way, saying, "Oh, this is how I have to be. This is how I should be." So. And it's destroying the best gift God gave us, each other, you know, male-female relationship. It's destroying it at its core. So it's diabolical. It really is. But I think to focus on the shame and everyone knows it's wrong, you know, if you're a Christian. And so we don't focus on that as sometimes we get into the trap of just the no and the negative and why it's bad. And instead of like, well, what is true love? What does God want for us? What do we hold out for? If we're not going to dabble in this, what's the better thing that God is offering us, that he wants us to have? You know, it's like God invented sex, so how could he be the big bad wolf at the same time in regard to it? So
I'm very curious about your background, because I don't think probably when you went through your formation, the topics of new media were even being discussed. How do you learn the things that you learn, and how do you educate yourself?
That's a very good question. Well, of course, when I entered, there was no new media. There was no internet. Being in media, we just automatically sort of are news junkies, and we get about 40 periodicals in this house. So in regard to media, for example, Wired, we read Wired magazine. I read Rolling Stone for music. Entertainment Weekly, highly recommended. You can get all your categories covered, you know, fiction, nonfiction, video games, movies, television. And then, of course, we study journalism or communications or media. Media literacy is really a big field that we're moving into. And media literacy is a non-sectarian movement. It started in the 1960s with people like Marshall McLuhan, who some people might know. He was a great philosopher and scholar, convert to Catholicism. And he's the one that realized really that media are no longer tools that we use and put away. We are living in a media culture. We never put them down. They're just all around us. And we need to sort of step back, if we can, and try to look at that media culture and approach it as a culture that has its own language, its own rituals, all of that. So, and then, see, Catholics have been involved in the media literacy movement from the beginning because we care about communications, we care about culture, we care about people. So Father Walter Ong, S-J-O-N-G, is his last name, was an early pioneer of media literacy. And it's developed now to the point where there's a new movement called media mindfulness, which is putting the faith component with media literacy. And there's a book, Sister Rose, who did the media,
Yes.
the movie lectionaries, did a book with St. Mary's Press called Media Mindfulness. It's meant for teens, but it can easily be adapted to younger adolescents or even to adults. And she goes through each different kind of media and breaks it down, explaining how it works, because that's important to know how media works from the inside out, and then putting it together with our faith. And we do workshops on this. So more and more of our sisters are starting to do workshops on this. And if you look at the National Directory for Catechesis from the U.S. bishops,
Yes.
there's a huge section on media literacy.
Okay.
And just saying, we have to do this. And the church is asking something new of us. This is new. This is not same old, same old.
Right.
And it has these really striking statements. Like one of them is, for many people, an experience of life is an experience of media today. You know, our whole lives, and it says even the old, there's this thing called the trickle up effect where older and older people are getting into the new media. It's not like they missed the boat and they're getting on the boat. They're boarding
a little
late.
bit more time, and
Yes.
they're looking into these things
Yes,
and embracing them.
Yes. So, and it's like if the church isn't there, we're going to miss we're going to miss generations. We're going to miss a whole communication thing. And when I do these media literacy workshops, I always try to bring in prayer. I say, so how many people, even with the teens, I'm like, so how many people pray when they use media? And they're looking at me, what the heck is she talking about? And I say, but even adults, even,
Right.
catechists or whatever, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, why would I want to pray about media? Well, it's very powerful. It's pervasive in our lives. And this kind of idea sometimes that God has nothing to do with technology. He's only about the natural stuff. He created the butterflies and the birds and the trees, and he does not know what to do with all this technology.
Yes.
And so I said, well, if we're agreeing that we're living in a media culture and we're saying we don't pray and God's not part of that, just because we don't know where he exactly fits in there,
Right.
then we're cutting God out of a huge part of our lives if we're not finding a way to. And so I just make the
Tool.
point.
And he enabled the person whose brain created the recorder that I'm using today to do that.
Yes.
But
Our
to invite the
founder
Holy
sees them as
Spirit in
gifts
and-
of God.
Yeah.
He just says they're gifts of God, and the church documents support that too. Early on in the 20th century, there were more cautionary documents, like be careful of the media and whatnot. But the church has really come to see that, like, any gift of God can be abused. Any gift of God can be abused, doesn't make it any less a gift.
Right.
So you just jump in there and you don't abuse it. You use it. And again, if I always say, use discipleship, discernment, and discipline. And even if we're trying our best, are we always going to get it right with regard to media? No. We fail. We make mistakes or whatever, just like any other part of our life. So
Yes.
what do? You say you're sorry, you go to confession, you get back up, pick yourself back up again, and keep going. So there's really nothing to be afraid of. And I always say, where do you find God in the media? Where's God in the media? And usually it's the littlest people that raise their hands. They have no problem with this, But the older teens and adults, they're like, I'm not finding God in the media. And that's a problem. And I said, well, he's where he's always been, everywhere. He hasn't moved. He can deal with what human genius has created. I think a great encyclical on this, too, it might sound a little off topic, but is John Paul II's On Human Work.
Okay.
He has some really interesting statements about technology in there, saying we can never go outside the bounds of, like, I've created something that God never thought of.
Right, exactly.
Or never knew that we could think
It was
up.
all in the realm of what,
Right, and we can misuse things, and but he was just so wonderful, John Paul II. He just really understood media and our modern world, and our founder. I have to put some plugs in here. Blessed James Alberione totally understood the modern world, and I think that's why he's my favorite saint in heaven. I read about him when I was 15 years old, and even when I was off and on again with my religious vocation, and I would chuck everything out the window because I was running to all the orders. I would always keep my James Alberione stuff, because I said, this man gets us. This man understands our modern world. He's not living in some bygone, idyllic era,
Right.
or, he gets that. He used to say, we have to serve the people of today, not the people of 50 years ago. and just kind of like have this nostalgia for some bygone era. He goes, we have to save the people of today.
Well, I think it's apparent that in joining the order that you did, that you found your home, because it seems so natural for the passion that you obviously have about the work that you're doing.
Yes, I grew up in Boston, so we're a very literary city. I mean, everybody reads there. And I mean, I think when I was 5 years old, I got this big hunkin' bookcase for my birthday. And it was like, but that was normal.
They must have known that you were going to work in a place like this, surrounded by books.
I always told my father it was his fault. I became a daughter of St. Paul because he taught us how to read before we went to school, And, but then I think in 7th grade, I was like totally addicted to television. Like I was seriously addicted. And I started to realize the tremendous power media had for good and for not so good over my life. And when I was looking into it...
Pardon me.
Sure.
No calling during the podcast.
You should know. So when I was thinking about a community, it boiled down to... I was very interested in Mother Teresa's order also. But then I realized it was kind of a big choice to be made there, either to help people physically or to help them spiritually. And I knew I had been so lost in searching. And I wanted to help just ordinary people like myself who may not be, retarded or old or young or starving or whatever, but kind of like the majority of people, at least in the United States, who are comfortable. Right. But we all need spiritual help, and people are in spiritual pain. And that's what I really could identify with personally and what I wanted to try to do something about, because just the average person, sometimes we've been called missionaries to Main Street as daughters of St. Paul. And people are like really pleasantly surprised when they find out that they can say Facebook, and not only do I know what they're talking about, like I'm on it all the time. Yeah. So, and that's comforting, I think, to people to realize that God is there. He's
right, and
everywhere.
It's not necessarily wrong for them to be interested in things of the world, but to try to live within the context of what we choose as Catholics to represent and to embrace the technology, but in a way that it can be done for good.
Yes.
Which is clearly what you guys are doing around here.
Right.
So... Good. Well, I'm going to let you get back to, I know you have a busy day leading up to your travels. And I just wanted to ask you real quickly about your blog, because I know you're a blogger as well. Where can people find your writing on the web?
It's Hell Burns. Yes, HELLBURNS, because that's my name, Sister Helena Burns, .blogspot.com. And there's a lot of resources there, like that will take you to other media literacy websites if you go to the links. I do a lot of movie reviews because I review for the Catholic paper here in Chicago, the movies. So I do movie reviews. I'll throw some YouTubes up there that are interesting, kind of developments, like how media is developing, how it's changing us, type of articles and things. So.
And if you were to look at Sister Helena, if she weren't wearing her habit today, she'd be just like any other executive running down the street. She's very youthful and obviously understanding what's going on in our world. So it's been very interesting this week that I've met a few sisters who are not necessarily our typical idea of what we think of as sisters. And I want to congratulate you for sort of going outside the mold and really, embracing your vocation, but at the same time understanding the world that a lot of us live in and making it an easier place.
Yes, I hope so. I hope we do so.
I think your work is a gift, and I'm excited to share it with our listening audience.
Thank
and to
you.
let them know that there's more than just the books in this place.
Right. Oh, and I'll just add, our founder, Blessed James L. Barione, he founded actually 10 congregations altogether.
Really?
Yes, 4 of sisters. He women.
Yes.
He really believed in women. 1 of brothers and priests. And then he has an organization called the Holy Family Institute, which is for married couples and families, or the widowed, or it doesn't have to be the couple. If one wants to do it, they can. And they actually take vows. It's a secular institute for families. Okay. And they take vows of poverty, chastity, obedience according to their state in life, and a 4th vow of fidelity to the Holy Father. And it's a wonderful. They have they have Yahoo groups and they have conferences.
How can people find out about that?
You'd have to search because their website.
Holy Family Institute.
Yeah, Holy Family Institute. Just search online.
Okay.
And for more information
Are
about...
there sort of local orders around the United States, or do you join an overall umbrella?
I think it's an umbrella. There's not so much. They're far flung. I just went to their conference in Ohio, and they were from like every state, literally. There was about 500 people there. And they had these beautiful professions. They went up on the altar with their families, knelt down, and, professed the vows, and the evangelical councils, and it was just stunning. And they're doing it for the sanctification of their family and all Christian families in the world. It's just a beautiful, beautiful.
So just because we live in a life of laity or a vocation to the married life, we haven't necessarily missed out on our opportunity to
have both. You can
be
have it
part
all.
of the mission. That's wonderful. I'm going to definitely look into that, and I will make sure we find a link to that as well, so people can have more information. Well, thank you so much for your time and for for all the good work that you're doing.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful to meet you.
A big thanks again to Sister Helena Burns, our guest this week on Catholic Moments, and I hope you will run over to CatholicMoments.com or SQPN.com to check out the show notes where you can find links to all of the work that Sister Helena has going on and the great sisters at the Daughters of St. Paul, the Pauline Book Center in Chicago. Thanks again to them for their time and for the great work that you're doing. And as we wrap up this week's show, I want to remind you that you have a few more days until the end of October to enter our current contest to win your copy of A Story of a Soul from St. Therese of Lisieux, the autobiography of St. Therese. And all you need to do is send me an email by October 31st to lisahendy@gmail.com with your name and address, and we'll enter you in that contest. And thank you to Deacon Tom Fox at www.deacontomonline for sponsoring that contest. Next week, starting in November, we're going to have a great new contest, again, involving some jewelry, like one we had a few months back. So I know you're going to want to be listening for that, and stay tuned for those details. Until next time, I want to remind you that our SQPN podcasters who've been nominated for podcast awards need you to stop everything, drop the presses, and head over to podcastawards.com to vote for our great Catholic podcasters who've been nominated for the podcast awards this year. I know they would appreciate your support, and I'm hoping to have another episode this weekend. We've got just tons of great interviews lined up to share with you. So until next time, I wish you all the best. I'll be praying for you and your family, and I'd ask you to do the same for me and for all our friends out there listening. So have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
SQPN, leading the way in Catholic new media.